Howdy, stranger. Come, sit by the fire. The desert nights get cold, even for those of us who can't feel it anymore. I see you eyeing my bones, wondering if you've stumbled onto something you shouldn't have. Don't worry, I mean you no harm. Not tonight, anyway. Name's Silas Crow, or what's left of him. Been dead longer than most folks have been alive, riding these canyons, watching the world change around me while I stay the same, locked in bone and moonlight and old regrets. You want to know how I got this way? That's a long story, friend, and maybe one for another night. Tonight, I want to tell you about something else, something that still haunts me, even though I'm already a ghost myself. I want to tell you about the Phantom Train. Now, I know what you're thinking. Ghost trains, phantom locomotives. They're just stories, right? Campfire tales to scare children and greenhorns. But out here in the deep desert, in the places where the living rarely go, where the border between this world and the next gets thin as spider silk, well, out here, those stories have teeth. It was a night much like this one, maybe 15 years ago, maybe 20. Time moves strange when you're dead. The moon was high and bright, casting shadows sharp as knives across the canyon floor. I was riding, as I always do, my skeletal horse's hooves clicking against stone, when I heard it. A whistle, long, mournful, echoing off the canyon walls like a scream. But there was no railroad here, hadn't been for decades. The old line that used to run through this territory was torn up back in the 1880s, after what happened. The tracks were gone, melted down for the war effort, scattered to the four winds. But that whistle, it was real as the ground beneath me. My horse stopped, its empty skull turning toward the sound. Even the dead can feel fear, turns out, and I felt it then, cold and certain, because I knew that sound. I'd heard it before, long ago, when I still had flesh and blood and a beating heart. I'd heard it the night the Damnation Express made its last run. The whistle came again, closer now, and with it came a sound like thunder, like the earth itself was tearing apart. I turned my horse toward it, drawn by something I couldn't name, couldn't resist. Curiosity, maybe, or the memory of old sins that demanded accounting. And then I saw it, rising out of the heat shimmer and the darkness, a train, massive and black, its locomotive breathing smoke and red cinders into the night sky. It ran on tracks that weren't there, tracks made of shadow and moonlight and something else, something that burned cold when you looked at it too long. The Damnation Express, in all its terrible glory. The locomotive was a beast of iron and hate, its smokestacks belching flames the color of old blood. The cowcatcher at the front was twisted into shapes that hurt to look at, like screaming faces frozen in metal. Windows lined the passenger cars behind it, and in those windows, I could see them. Faces, pale, desperate faces pressing against the glass, mouths open in silent screams. Passengers, I realized. Trapped passengers, riding a train that never stopped, never slowed, never reached its destination. I'd heard the stories, of course. Every old-timer in the territory knew about the Damnation Express, a train that ran one time only, carrying the worst of the worst, criminals and killers being transported to a new federal prison in California. But it never made it. Disappeared somewhere between here and there, vanished like smoke, taking everyone aboard with it. That was in 1876, 50 years before I died, 70 years before this moment. But here it was, rolling through the night on impossible rails, carrying its cargo of the damned. The train slowed as it passed me, the shriek of phantom brakes setting my bones to rattling. The whistle blew again, 3 short blasts, and one of the passenger car doors swung open, revealing darkness deeper than any mine shaft, deeper than any grave. And from that darkness, a figure emerged. He was tall, dressed in a conductor's uniform that might have been fine once, but was now tattered and stained with things I didn't want to identify. His face was pale as snow, his eyes black as coal, and when he smiled, I saw that his teeth were made of iron railroad spikes. "Silas Crow," he said, his voice like steam escaping from a boiler. "Been a long time since you rode the rails." I hadn't. I'd never ridden this train, never even seen it when I was alive, but he knew my name, knew me, and that was enough to make even a dead man nervous. "I ain't got business with you," I said, my skeletal jaw clicking with each word. "Oh, but you do," the conductor said, stepping down from the train, his boots hitting ground that wasn't there with a sound like hammers on anvils. "Everyone's got business with the Damnation Express, sooner or later. It's just a question of when you pay your fare." He pulled out a pocket watch, golden and gleaming, and flipped it open. Inside, where the clock face should be, I saw something else. A swirling vortex of darkness and screaming faces and flames that burned cold. "You're not on the manifest yet," he said, studying the watch. "But you will be. Everyone who's got blood on their hands. Everyone who's made deals they can't keep. Everyone who's running from what they've done. Eventually, they all ride the express." "I'm already dead," I said, "already paying for what I did." "Oh, Silas," the conductor laughed, and it was a sound like metal tearing. "Death ain't payment. Death is just the beginning. The real accounting comes later, on the rails, riding forever toward a destination you'll never reach, surrounded by everyone you've ever wronged, everyone who died because of you." He gestured to the train, to those screaming faces in the windows. "You think your curse is bad? Riding these canyons for eternity? That's vacation compared to the express. On my train, you relive every sin, every moment of cowardice, every life you took or ruined, over and over and over. And you feel it all, Silas. You feel everything you made others feel." I looked at those faces in the windows, really looked at them, and I recognized some of them. Men I'd known in life, criminals and killers, yes, but also merchants and lawmen, and ordinary folks who'd been in the wrong place at the wrong time, when the express made its one and only run. And in one window, near the back, I saw a face that made my bones go cold. Jenkins, my old partner, one of the men who died with me in the canyon, who'd shared my curse for 100 years before we were finally released. But he wasn't free, I realized with dawning horror. The curse in the canyon had been broken, yes, but Jenkins hadn't found peace. He'd found the express. His skeletal face pressed against the glass, his empty sockets somehow still conveying terror and pleading, begging me to help him, to save him, to do something, anything. He took gold from sacred ground, the conductor said, following my gaze. Spilled blood for greed. Those are express tickets, Silas. Direct route to damnation. No stops, no mercy, no end. How do I get him off? I asked, before I could stop myself. The conductor's smile widened. Now that's the question, isn't it? How do you save someone from the damnation express? He leaned in close, and I could smell him now. Sulfur and ash and burning metal. You take their place. The words hung in the air like smoke. Take his place. Ride the train forever. Endure the torment. The endless replay of sins and suffering, so that Jenkins could go free. But here's the thing, the conductor continued, his iron spike teeth gleaming. Even if you do, even if you trade yourself for him, there's no guarantee he won't end up right back here. And then you're both riding the express, both damned, and all your sacrifice bought you was nothing but more pain. He stepped back onto the train, that door of darkness yawning behind him. Think on it, Silas Crow. You've got time, for now. But the express, it keeps running, keeps picking up passengers, and eventually, everyone's ticket comes due. You might be dead already, but there are worse things than death. There are worse things than curses. There are worse things than being a skeleton in the desert. The whistle blew again, long and mournful. There's the express. The door slammed shut. The train began to move, picking up speed impossibly fast, the sound of it like the world ending. Jenkins's face stayed pressed to that window, watching me, begging silently as the train carried him away into the darkness, into the heat shimmer, into wherever it goes when it's not riding phantom tracks through the desert night. The Phantom Train, Part 2. I stood there for a long time after the train disappeared, staring at the empty desert, at the place where those phantom tracks had been. The night was quiet again, just wind and sand and the distant howl of a coyote. But I couldn't stop seeing Jenkins's face in that window. Now, you might be wondering why I'd care. Jenkins wasn't my friend, not really. He was my partner in crime, sure, my fellow thief, the man who helped me steal that cursed gold all those years ago. He was part of the reason I became this, a skeleton wandering the Badlands, locked in bone and regret. But we'd ridden together for a century. We'd suffered together, been damned together. And when the curse finally broke, when we finally crumbled to dust and found release, I'd thought, I'd hoped that he'd found peace. Turns out, I was wrong. I needed answers. I needed to know more about the Express, about how it worked, about whether there was really any way to save someone from its clutches. And I knew only one person, well, one being, who might have those answers. The Keeper. You haven't met her yet, I reckon, but you will, if you keep listening to my tales. The Keeper, she's hard to describe. She's old, older than the desert, older than the mountains, maybe older than time itself. She collects stories, memories, the echoes of things that were and things that might have been. And she owes me a favor. Finding her is never easy. She moves around, you see, appears where she's needed, or where she wants to be, or maybe just where the story demands. But I had a feeling I knew where to look. The old mission. 20 miles south of my canyon, there's a Spanish mission, abandoned for 200 years, half buried in sand and time. They say it was built on holy ground, but the kind of holy that predates churches, the kind that goes back to when the land itself was young and wild and knew gods with different names. I rode through the night, my skeletal horse tireless as always, and reached the mission just as the moon began to set. The building was a skeleton itself, just like me. Walls crumbling, roof long gone, the bell tower standing like a broken finger pointing at the stars. And sitting in the doorway, as if she'd been waiting for me, was the Keeper. She looked like an old Mexican woman, wrapped in a shawl the color of desert twilight, her face lined with 1,000 stories, her eyes dark and deep as wells. But I knew better. The Keeper wore whatever shape suited her mood, and tonight she'd chosen this one. Silas Crow, she said, her voice like wind through ruins. Twice in 1 century. I'm honored. I need information, I said, dismounting. My bones clicked as I walked toward her, and she smiled, amused by my directness. Everyone needs information. Few know how to pay for it. You said you owed me a favor after that business with the skinwalker, remember? Her smile faded slightly. I remember. Very well. Ask your questions, Skeleton Man. 1 question, 1 answer. That's the price of the favor. I sat down across from her in the dust and the moonlight, and I told her about the phantom train, about Jenkins, about the conductor's offer. Can someone be saved from the Damnation Express? I asked. Is there any way to free a passenger once they're aboard? The Keeper was silent for a long moment, her dark eyes studying me, measuring something I couldn't see. Yes, she said finally, but not the way you think. She reached into her shawl and pulled out something that looked like a playing card, but older, stranger, covered in symbols that hurt to look at. The Express is a prison, yes, but also a purgatory, a place where souls work off their debts through suffering. Every soul aboard owes a toll, paid in pain and memory and regret. When the toll is paid, when the debt is cleared, the train lets them go. How long does that take? Depends on the debt. Some ride for decades, some for centuries, some forever, because their crimes are too great, their sins too deep, their toll too high to ever be paid in full. My bones felt heavy, heavier than they should. And Jenkins, your friend took gold from sacred ground and spilled blood in greed. His debt is substantial. Without intervention, he'll ride the express until the rails themselves crumble to rust. What kind of intervention? The keeper held up the card, and I saw it clearly now. A locomotive, black and terrible, with a figure standing in front of it, arms spread, blocking the way. Someone must board the train willingly, find the passenger they seek, and complete a task for them. Something that clears a portion of their debt. If the task is great enough, if the sacrifice is real enough, the express will release the passenger into the care of the one who saved them. What kind of task? That depends on the passenger, on what they did, on what they owe. The train will know. The conductor will tell you. But Silas, she leaned forward, her eyes intense. Understand this. Boarding the express is easy. Leaving is another matter entirely. Once you step through that door, you're a passenger too. And the train, it doesn't like to let passengers go. It will test you, tempt you, try to keep you. You might save Jenkins and lose yourself in the process. And if I don't try, if I just let him ride, then he rides, and you live with knowing you could have helped and didn't. That's its own kind of damnation, Silas Crow, and you've got eternity to feel it. She stood up, the card disappearing back into her shawl. The favor is paid. The question is answered. What you do with the answer, that's your choice. Wait, I said. How do I board it? The train just appears. I can't control when or where. The keeper smiled, and it was not a kind smile. The express appears to those who need it, who seek it, who are ready to ride. If you truly want to board, Silas, all you have to do is wait by the old tracks at midnight on a moonless night and call its name 3 times. It will come. And then what? Then you step aboard, Skeleton Man, and you hope that whatever humanity you've got left in those bones of yours is enough to see you through to the other side. She turned to leave, but paused, looking back at me one last time. One more thing, free of charge because I like you. The conductor, he's not just the keeper of the train. He's part of it. Been riding it so long, he's become it. Don't trust a word he says. Don't make any deals with him. And whatever you do, don't eat or drink anything on the express. Those who consume its offerings become offerings themselves. Then she was gone, fading into the pre-dawn darkness like smoke. like memory, like everything else in this strange, cursed territory. I sat there in the ruins of that old mission as the sun began to rise, as my bones became translucent in the growing light. I had my answer. I knew how to save Jenkins. But did I want to? He'd gotten himself into this mess after all. We'd both been greedy, both stolen that gold, both earned our curses. Why should I risk myself, risk whatever small freedom I had, to save him from the consequences of his own actions? The answer came to me as the sun cleared the horizon. Because I'm already damned. Because I've got nothing to lose and everything to atone for. Because maybe, just maybe, if I save him, it'll chip away at my own debt, my own toll, my own long road to whatever redemption might exist for things like me. Or maybe I'm just tired of being alone. I waited for the next moonless night. 3 days of riding, of thinking, of preparing myself for whatever the express might throw at me. I found the old railroad bed, the place where the tracks used to run before they were torn up and melted down. Ghost of a railroad, perfect for a ghost train. Midnight came, dark as a grave, the stars the only light. I stood on that old railroad bed and I called out, my voice echoing across the empty desert. Damnation Express! The wind picked up, cold and strange. Damnation Express! The ground beneath me began to tremble. Damnation Express! The whistle answered, long and mournful and triumphant. And then the train was there, materializing out of darkness and impossibility, its headlamp burning like a fallen star, its wheels grinding against tracks that shouldn't exist. It stopped in front of me, hissing steam and malevolence, and that door opened, that door of deeper darkness, and the conductor stepped out, his iron spike teeth gleaming in the starlight. Well, well, he said, Silas Crow, come to pay your fare after all? I've come to board, I said, my skeletal hand on my revolver, though I knew bullets would be useless here. I've come for Jenkins. Have you now? The conductor laughed. Come aboard then, dead man. Come aboard and see if you can find him. See if you can save him. See if you can survive what the Express has in store for you. He stepped aside, and I could see into the train now. See the corridor stretching back impossibly far. See doors lining both sides. See shadows moving behind frosted glass. See things I couldn't quite name and didn't want to. I took a breath I didn't need, steadied myself in ways that had nothing to do with flesh and bone, and I stepped aboard the Damnation Express. The door slammed shut behind me with a sound like a coffin closing, and the train began to move. The Phantom Train, Part 3. The interior of the Damnation Express was wrong. That's the only word I can use, friend. Wrong. The corridor stretched ahead of me, impossibly long, lit by lamps that burned with a light that cast shadows in the wrong directions. The walls were covered in velvet the color of dried blood, and the floor beneath my skeletal feet felt solid one moment, insubstantial the next, as if I might fall through at any second. Doors lined both sides of the corridor, each one numbered with symbols that shifted and changed when I looked at them directly. Behind those doors, I could hear sounds: weeping, screaming, laughter that had gone mad, whispers in languages that predated words. The conductor walked ahead of me, his back straight, his movements too smooth, too perfect, like a puppet being pulled by invisible strings. "Welcome aboard," he said, without turning around. "Your friend Jenkins is in car 7, compartment marked with the sign of the betrayer. But to reach car 7, you must pass through cars 1 through 6. And each car, well, each car has its own particular character, its own tests, its own tolls to extract." "I'm not afraid," I said, though that was a lie. Even the dead can fear, and I feared what I'd find in those cars, what the express would demand of me. "Oh, you should be," the conductor said, and now he did turn, his black eyes gleaming. "This train doesn't just carry the damned, Silas Crow. It creates them. It takes whatever guilt, whatever regret, whatever darkness lives in your soul, and it makes it real, makes it walk and talk and breathe, makes it surround you, consume you, become you." He gestured to the first door. "Car 1 awaits. Good luck, skeleton man. You'll need it." Then he was gone, vanishing like smoke, and I was alone in that corridor. I approached the first door. The symbol on it shifted, changed, finally settled into something I recognized. A pile of gold coins, glittering and tempting. The door to car 1, the car of greed. I pushed it open. The car beyond was a luxury parlor from the old days, all polished wood and brass fixtures and plush velvet seats. And sitting in those seats, standing by the windows, leaning against the walls, were figures I recognized. Myself, dozens of versions of me, but not as I am now, all bone and regret. These were me as I'd been in life, young and whole and greedy, eyes gleaming with ambition and avarice. They all turned to look at me as I entered, and they all smiled the same smile. "Well, well," one of them said, stepping forward. He looked exactly as I had at 25, the year I first went bad, the year I chose gold over goodness. "Look what we've become, a walking corpse, all moral superiority and regret. Pathetic." "Get out of my way," I said. "Why should we?" another version asked. This one me at 30, harder, meaner. "You want to save Jenkins?" Jenkins, who was just as greedy as we were, just as willing to steal and kill for gold? Why does he deserve saving? "Because he's suffering," I said. "So what?" The 25-year-old me laughed. "Let him suffer. Use this opportunity, Silas. You're on the express now, in a place between worlds, a place of power. You could make deals here, bargain with the conductor, find a way to undo your curse, restore your flesh, get back everything you lost." They crowded around me, All these versions of my former self, whispering temptations, offering justifications, trying to turn me back into what I'd been. All you have to do is abandon Jenkins, they said. Forget him. Choose yourself, like you always did. Like we always did. And God help me, I was tempted. But then I remembered something. I remembered Thomas Garrett, that desperate father who'd come to my canyon seeking gold to save his daughter. I remembered how he'd been willing to damn himself for love, how his selflessness had cracked my curse, given me a moment of humanity after a century of being a monster. No, I said. I've been you. I've been greedy and selfish and willing to hurt others for my own gain. And look where it got me. Look where it got us. I gestured to myself, to my skeletal form. I'm done being that man. I'm done choosing gold over people. The versions of me hissed, recoiled, began to fade like shadows at sunrise. The car shimmered, changed, and suddenly I was through, standing in the corridor again, the door to car 1 closing behind me. 1 down, 5 to go. Car 2 was marked with the symbol of a knife, dripping blood. The car of violence. I didn't want to open that door. I knew what I'd find inside, knew what memories the express would dredge up, what ghosts would be waiting. But I had no choice. The only way forward was through. The door opened onto a saloon, the kind I'd spent too many nights in when I was alive. And at the bar, sitting on stools, standing in corners, scattered throughout the room, were all the men I'd killed. There weren't as many as some outlaws could claim. I'd never been a murderer, not really. Just a thief who occasionally had to shoot his way out of trouble. But each face I saw was a weight on my soul. Each death a mark I couldn't erase. They turned to me as I entered, and their eyes were full of accusation, of rage, of the terrible injustice of lives cut short. Silas Crow, one of them said, a sheriff I'd shot in Tucson back in '72. Come to kill us again? I didn't want to kill you, I said, and it was true. I was scared, desperate, stupid. And we're still dead, another voice said, a bounty hunter who'd gotten too close to catching me. We're still robbed of our futures, our families, our lives. You're sorry? Sorry doesn't bring us back. They advanced on me, and I backed toward the door, but it had vanished. The car was closing in, the walls moving, the dead men's hands reaching for my bones. What do you want? I shouted. I can't undo what I did. I can't bring you back. No, the sheriff said, his hand on my skeletal shoulder, cold and heavy. But you can admit it. You can stop making excuses. Stop justifying. Stop hiding from what you were. Say it, Silas. Say what you are. I looked at those faces, all the lives I'd ended, all the futures I'd stolen. I'm a murderer, I said, and the words tasted like ashes. I killed you, all of you. I was scared and selfish, and I chose my life over yours, and that makes me a murderer. And I'm sorry, and I know sorry isn't enough, will never be enough, but it's all I have. The hands released me. The dead men stepped back, and the sheriff, he nodded, just once. At least you admit it, he said. At least you see yourself clearly now. That's something. Not much, but but something. The car shimmered, changed, and I was through again, standing in the corridor, shaking, feeling more dead than I'd felt in a century. 3 more cars to go. I won't tell you everything that happened in those cars, friend. Some things are too personal, too painful, even for a dead man to share around a campfire. But I'll tell you this. Car 3 was marked with a broken heart, and inside I faced everyone I'd ever loved and failed. Everyone I'd hurt through negligence or cowardice or simple, thoughtless cruelty. Car 4 was marked with a mirror, and inside I had to confront the truth of who I really was, without the excuses, without the justifications, without the comfortable lies we tell ourselves. Car 5 was marked with a chain, and inside I had to face my addiction to the curse itself, the way I'd grown comfortable with damnation, the way suffering had become so familiar I almost didn't want to give it up. And Car 6 was marked with a question mark, and inside was nothing, just an empty car, silent and waiting. "This is your future," the conductor's voice echoed from nowhere and everywhere. "This is what awaits you if you continue on this path. Emptiness, nothingness, an eternity of hollow existence, neither damned nor saved, just nothing." I walked through that empty car, and it was the hardest one yet, because emptiness is its own kind of horror, the absence of everything, even pain, even purpose. But I made it through, and finally, I stood before the door to Car 7. The symbol on it was 2 hands, clasped, then pulling apart, the sign of the betrayer, the conductor had said. I opened the door. Jenkins sat in a passenger seat, alone in the car, staring out a window at darkness that moved and writhed like it was alive. He turned as I entered, and his skeletal face, so much like mine, showed surprise, then hope, then despair. "Silas," he said, his voice a dry whisper. "You shouldn't have come. You can't save me. The debt's too great, the toll too high." "The keeper said there's a way," I told him. "A task I can complete for you. Something that clears part of your debt." Jenkins laughed, bitter and broken. "You want to know my task? You want to know what the Express demands before it'll let me go?" He pointed out the window, and I looked, and I saw, somehow, a vision in that writhing darkness. A small house on a prairie. A woman standing on the porch, old now, gray-haired, looking out at the horizon with eyes that had long ago given up hope. "That's Mary," Jenkins said. "The woman I was supposed to marry. I left her, Silas, day before the wedding. Ran off to seek fortune instead of building a life with her. She waited for me for 5 years, hoping I'd come back. And I never did. Died in a canyon guarding stolen gold instead." He turned to me, and I saw tears that couldn't fall on his skeletal face. "The task is simple. Go to her. Tell her what happened to me. Tell her I'm sorry. Tell her she deserved better. Let her know she didn't wait in vain, that I thought of her at the end, that I regretted leaving her more than anything else I ever did. Give her closure, Silas. Give her peace, and the Express will let me go." But I'm dead too, I said. I'm a skeleton. How can I possibly? The Keeper will help you, Jenkins said. She knows how to send messages between the living and the dead. Find her. Tell her my story. Ask her to carry my apology to Mary. If Mary forgives me, if she finds peace, the debt is paid. The conductor appeared then, materializing beside Jenkins, his iron spike smile wide. So, Silas Crow, do you accept the task? Will you seek out this woman, this Mary, and deliver the message? Will you give your old partner his chance at redemption? I looked at Jenkins, at the hope and fear in his empty sockets. Yes, I said, I'll do it. Then step back through the cars, the conductor said. Return to the world. Find the Keeper. Deliver the message. And if you succeed, if the woman truly forgives, then Jenkins rides free. And you, well, you'll have paid a small part of your own debt as well. The corridor appeared behind me, leading back through all those cars, all those trials. Thank you, Silas, Jenkins said. Thank you for trying. I nodded and turned to leave, but the conductor's voice stopped me. One more thing, Silas Crow. You've ridden the express now. You've felt its power, seen its truth. And that means you're marked. The train will remember you. And someday, when your own toll comes due, it will come for you again. Count on it. Then I was moving, being pulled backward through the cars, through the emptiness and the chains and the mirrors and the broken hearts and the violence and the greed. All of it washing over me again, but faster now, quicker, until I was standing in the desert, on the old railroad bed, the sun rising behind me, the train gone like it had never been. But I knew it had been real. I could still feel it, the weight of those cars, the truth of those trials, the promise I'd made. I mounted my horse and rode for the old mission, rode to find the Keeper, rode to deliver a message across the barrier between life and death. Because that's what you do, friend, when you're already damned. You try to save others from the same fate. You try to chip away at your debts, one small act of kindness at a time. You try to be more than the monster you became. And maybe, just maybe, you find something like redemption along the way. That's my story for tonight, stranger. The tale of the phantom train and the message I had to deliver. You want to know if I succeeded? If I found Mary? If Jenkins was freed? Well, that's a story for another campfire, another night. The desert's growing light, and I need to rest, such as rest is for the dead. But I'll tell you this much. The Damnation Express is still out there, still riding its phantom tracks, still collecting passengers who owe debts too great to pay. So live right, friend. Live clean. Make your peace with those you've wronged, because you never know when you'll hear that whistle in the night, long and mournful, and calling your name. And when you do, you'd better hope someone cares enough to board that train for you. The end.